Hi, Matthew here from FansBet, and I'm joined by the Liverpool legend that is Sir Kenny Dalglish. Kenny, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're just going to have a little chat about your career at Liverpool and your memories and what made it so special for you at the club. Now, you joined Liverpool in 1977. They just won the European Cup. They're English champions, and you were replacing the outgoing Kevin Keegan, essentially. Did you feel any pressure?
No, I felt more excitement and anticipation and pressure. Kevin was fantastic for Liverpool Football Club, but he chose to go. That wasn't my decision. I wasn't chasing him out the door. I wasn't coming in by my choice. It was my choice because I asked for a transfer from Celtic, who were fantastic to me growing up. Jock Stein was the manager there, and although we were only young kids, he took a great deal of time and effort to try and educate us and help us. So the time I had at Celtic was really good. Growing up, a lot of us growing up at the same time, getting into the first team. So they set the foundations for me in my footballing life. And if it hadn't been for Celtic, I don't think I ended up at Liverpool. But with Kevin gone, they had to get a replacement. And as Bob Paisley said in his interview, we'd only paid the money to the government if we hadn't spent it, so we might as well take a chance and spend it on Kenny, and that's what happened. And it was a great place for me to come. If I'd had a choice of going anywhere, it would have been Liverpool.
And you famously scored after just 7 minutes of your league debut away at Middlesbrough, so maybe the pressure wasn't on, and if it was, I suppose that would have taken a lot of the pressure, a lot of the heat off.
Well, we only drew one each, but I suppose when you come as a new signing somewhere, the anticipation is for you to have a look at you quite early and see how you do. But it was a tap in really. Terry McDermott did all the work. Just squared it back at Middlesbrough and just tapped it in. So, no, I was here when I was 15 years of age at Liverpool, and it was brilliant. And the story says that they didn't want to sign us. They did want to sign us. Shanks took us back to the hotel where we stayed, which was the YMCA in Mount Pleasant. And it's not true, but the village people say it's no fun to stay at the YMCA. So for me, if Shanks is taking you back and says he'll send the Scottish representative up to the house, speak to my mum and dad, then that tells me that they will want to sign me. So I'd been here before, and it was a really family club, and a bit as I grew up through Celtic and Liverpool had great similarities. So for me it was, and the two cities were very similar. So for me it was ideal.
You mentioned Paisley there and Shankly before him. I mean, when you joined Liverpool, that was the era of the famous boot room. I mean, how much did that boot room and the characters in the club contribute to the success that Liverpool achieved? Well,
none of us would have been here if it hadn't been for Shanks and the back room that he promoted, because when Shanks left, Bob went in as manager, so he's out the same mould as Shanks, and then Ronnie Moran was in there, Joe Fagan, who became the manager after Bob. So the boot room was set in its ways, and they were appointing everybody from within. But it's not just where they came for it was important. It was a mentality that was important, and every single one of them that we worked under were brilliant. And they all came through the Shankly era. So everybody that's had an involvement with Liverpool should be eternally grateful to the people. And the boot room was there for themselves, for somewhere to go and just chew the fat and fill in their book about what we'd done in training that day. So it was, the players weren't really allowed in there unless we're going to collect their boots.
You mentioned Bob Paisley there. I mean, he was famously a very quiet man in public and in the press. What was he like to work with or work under, to play under in the dressing room? Was he equally as quiet? Was he?
He was quiet, but by the way, he was hugely intelligent as well. He never said a lot, but when he did say something, it was always very poignant. And the thing about management, you can talk as much as you want, but the reason why you get success or failure is if you get more decisions right than you do wrong, you're going to have a chance of being successful. And he got an awful lot right.
Do you think he could have managed in the modern game? Is he the kind of manager that would be successful today?
I think it's irrelevant what you were in the fabric of the football club, whether you're a manager, coach, player, administrator upstairs or whatever. The most important thing is you had your ability to get through that, and whatever era they lived in, if they were good at their job, they would have been good at it now. So I don't see any reason why he wouldn't have been.
I mean, he famously won 20 trophies at Liverpool, 6 league titles, 3 European Cups in 9 seasons. I mean, that's the old argument of where does he stand in terms of the greatest British managers of all time. I mean,
well, I think if you equate what he did, he won six championships in 9 years. Do the maths.
And 3 European Cups.
But just even with the championships, do your maths.
Yeah.
That's a better percentage than anybody.
So I'm not
unless somebody works for 3 years and gets the sack, maybe 1, 2. So for him, 6 out of 9, I can't see it. I don't see anybody being any better, and he was very humble and but hugely knowledgeable.
You mentioned Jock Stein earlier on. I mean, he was obviously a huge part of your life, but I mean, you also, in terms of the successful British managers, I suppose you'd have to put him in the equation as well.
Well, I don't think there'll be another Scottish club wins a European Cup. So he did that in '67, and the success and knowledge and that he passed on at Celtic was unbelievable. And we were very fortunate as young lads growing up that he had time to spend with us, and he did spend time with us, and he cared about the younger boys. And there was an awful lot of young boys there who went on to make a career in football. So Big Jock and Bob, to play under those two most successful managers and the club's histories that they had, I would have thought he'd be very fortunate, and I don't think there was much chance of coming away without winning a trophy.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the European Cup there. When you came to Liverpool, that very much was the period that kick-started this love affair with Liverpool and the European Cup, which still carries on to this day. I mean, what is it about Old Big Ears that is so special to Liverpool and the fans and the players?
I think winning it is a special thing, but for me, it's really about what happens for the games. I mean, the stories, the fans travelling to the games, the tales they tell, the laughs and the jokes and the enjoyment they get, and then coming out as winners with the trophy. It's fantastic, and that's all you want, and you want to give the supporters the stories that they want to pass on to the kids, and then the kids need to get the stories. So the continued success is hugely important to the development of the fans and the enjoyment of the fans. And we've been fortunate. Although there was a break in league titles like for 30 years, I think if you look through that, there was huge tales that they could tell for the European ventures. So Europe's important. It's really important, and even more poignant when you win it. And it'll be probably the greatest one will be Istanbul, and that's just so happens where the final is this year.
That's true. So you played with some of the greats at Liverpool Football Club. I mean, the list is endless. But were there any sort of unsung heroes that were in the team that were so successful that you think didn't get the credit that they perhaps deserved?
Well, I don't know how other people think, who never got the credit they deserved. Within the dressing room, everybody was an equal. And I think that's more important than anybody trying to be bigger or better than their teammate. In the dressing room, there's things that one person can do that another person can't do. And if you get a team together that covers most of the basics that you have to cover to win matches, then they're hugely important. But sometimes you don't get the glory and the prestige you deserve. And every single person in the dressing rooms I've been in, both at Celtic and at Liverpool, have been heroes to me. So I wouldn't say that anybody within there never got the credit they deserve. They certainly never. That wasn't the case with any of the players or staff that was involved, because everybody was hugely important.
So you obviously played with some greats of the game, but in that era too, in the 70s and 80s, you must have played against some fantastic players as well. I mean, is there anyone in your playing days that you would hold up there as being some of the best players you've played against that perhaps you would have liked to have played with?
Well, I don't know if I'd like to have played with them, because we had a decent bit of success where I'd played already, so the players must have been good enough to get that success. But Maradona, we played against for Scotland, and he must have only been 19 or something, 20, and he was something really special then.
Yeah, you could tell then at that stage.
Well, he was already very well established in the footballing world and the Argentinian national team. So who else played against George Best in end of season game in Toronto? Bestie was fantastic as well. Great to see him play. No, there's been a few, but I wouldn't have changed the people that I played with, and hopefully they wouldn't have changed me.
Sure they wouldn't. I mean, you replaced Joe Fagan in '85 to become Liverpool manager. How did you find the transition from player to the famous boot room that you've already spoken about? Did you find it a natural transition?
Well, I never ventured into the boot room too much. I thought I was a wee bit too inexperienced for that, because whilst they were in there and the aftermath of the games, they were still actually working, and they were brilliant at what they did. They were hospitable, they gave you a drink and everything, but they were still getting a lot of information from you, but maybe some of them would have been unconscious that they were passing it on.
Yeah.
But when Joe left, obviously they asked me if I would have a go at it. It was such a huge compliment that you couldn't say no. So we had a go, but for me it was, I loved the dressing room, I loved the banter in the dressing room, and to come away from it, I think the players handled it better than I did, because I wanted to be part and parcel of it. But you can't really be what you were as a player when you become manager. And they knew who I was, they knew what I stood for, and they knew how I would do most things. So the way they reacted, the respect they gave us, becoming manager was fantastic for them. Better than what I could have done in reverse.
And you've famously won the double in your first season as player manager, for first time in the club's history to win the FA Cup and League double. I mean, that must be one of your biggest achievements as a...
Yeah, we came with a late run. Everton looked favourites for both all the way through. They were leading the league, and we went the last 12 games, we won 11 and drew 1. So we did a lot to win it ourselves, and we had to beat a good team in getting there. And the cup, obviously we go 1-0 down, and they're the better team in the first half. But the better team is the one that wins. And on the day we scored 3, they only get 1, so we won the double. To be that successful in your first season was really surreal.
Another great team of yours, of course, was that 87-88 team. Barnes, Beardsley, Aldridge, another great team. I wonder, is there anyone in the modern Liverpool team that you would put in that team to make it even better if that was possible?
No, you're as good as the hand that you're dealt, and they boys in 87, 88 were fantastic. I mean, they're hugely entertaining. They played in some fantastic Liverpool teams throughout the years. There was one year we only lost 16 goals and scored 80-something goals. 78, 79 and that, yeah. 80-something goals. Yeah. So that's not a bad effort when you consider it's 42 games as well.
Of course, that's the great Ray Clements in goal.
Everybody was great.
Yeah.
To get a return like that was unbelievable. So for the 87, 88 team to get the respect and the love that they had for the fans, they must have been doing something right. And they were fantastic to watch. I mean, Barnesy, John Aldridge, what a great goal scorer, and what an ideal fit he was for us. Because Aldo's greatest ability was to score goals. And if you give him enough chances, he's going to score a fair amount of goals. And he was getting overfed. He had to go on a diet, I think. He was getting a bit fat with that, but he was brilliant because it was ideal, and he wouldn't be the one that they'd be throwing out John's name, John Barnes and Ray Houghton, Peter Beardsley. big hands, and they threw out a lot of names before Aldo, but for me, Aldo was hugely important as much, and he was equally as important as everybody else. And as I said before about everybody's equal. When you look at that dressing room and you look at the players, every single one of them really got on, loved what they did, and was hugely successful what they did.